Welcome to the second episode of the Where Have You Been podcast. I'm Bill Ream, and I have my guest today, my friend Derek, who I grew up with in Western New York. And it's a special two-part episode this time. Enjoy today with a lot of stories about the United States and Canada, so I guess North America. And then next week, if you like what you hear, tune in for some more interesting stories even outside of the U.S. But without further ado, let's get started with episode 2. Here's Derek and the Where Have You Been podcast. All right, so another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast, and today I have another friend of mine. His name is Derek. Derek, who are you?
Derek Cole. I'm from Jamestown, New York, same town as my good friend Bill here. Known Bill for 30 years. Moved out to California 26 years ago this year.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? 26 years ago. And got a wife and a son, 2 stepdaughters, and 2 grandbabies from our eldest daughter.
Nice. So what are you doing out there in LA?
I've been working in the film industry since the year 2000. And right now, for the past 10 years, I've been doing Simulcam. And Simulcam is basically a real-time compositing that allows virtual elements like characters or, say, set extensions or environments to be integrated with live-action footage. So that way the director can see something that doesn't actually exist, and it will be to the proper scale and size and distance away from the camera. And I essentially track the camera's position through 3D space.
Almost sort of like virtual reality in a way. It's not. It's actually not the same thing. But just as a visual, like you have like a big blue screen behind you, but on the camera you're seeing forest.
You're seeing like the forest, or say if there's a castle, a lot of films will have pillars made of styrofoam or something like that going up. But obviously they're not going to build the whole castle if we're supposed to be looking at like the Disney castle. But because I'm tracking the camera and the lens distortion, you can tilt up and see the little flag on the top of the castle in the monitor. But of course, in real life, you're just looking at the top of a blue screen.
Very cool. Would we know anything that you've worked on?
Probably. Well, Aquaman, Game of Thrones, The Mandalorian, some smaller movies like Motherless Brooklyn, done Midway with Roland Emmerich, which was really cool. We did not just The Mandalorian, but a whole Star Wars universe, because I did the Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, The Man in the High Castle, that's on Amazon. A few things. I've
heard of a couple of those. And I think probably similar to my first guest, Brian, similar in that your work actually has taken you to travel to places. But before we actually get to that, I guess my first question for you is, like, travel in and of itself, was it sort of always a thing for you, or was it like, hey, I moved to LA once you got into the industry, that became more of a thing? Have you always sort of loved the idea of travel, even outside of work?
I've always liked the idea of travel, but my parents and my grandparents and whatnot are not very seasonal travelers. Like, my grandma, the furthest away that she was just like, well, I went to Florida. And I'm like, I could have walked to Florida. Like, it wasn't that crazy. But, but I've always been fascinated by it. But really, when me and my buddy Steve, who I've known since the 3rd grade, we went out one time to Manhattan. And, and some reason, even though it's not far, especially from Jamestown, New York, when we went and saw it, it always felt far because everyone talks about everything like it's so far away. And then we drove there, and we were there in less than 8 hours.
Yeah, but isn't it
And
funny
I got,
how if you
you know,
when you used to introduce yourself as I live in New York, they were like, "Oh," and everyone
oh,
just assumes that you're near New York City, and we were
everybody
as far
assumes like
away as
which
you could
part.
be. Yeah.
Yeah, they're always like, which part, Brooklyn? And I'm like, oh no, no, I'm so west, I'm in Ohio. It's like so far away
Well,
from that.
I never went to New York City. I lived in New York all my life till I moved to Pittsburgh in 2011, and I never went to New York City until after I moved to Pittsburgh.
I know, right? And we see it in so many films and all this because I've always been a huge film buff, and I'm watching all these movies, and it's like New York City, oh crazy, and I live in the state, and I never went. And then finally, when Steve was just like, "Hey, you want to go?" and we just did an overnight trip out of nowhere. We didn't plan it. We didn't know where we were going.
How old
I,
were you
I
then?
get, ooh, 17 maybe,
Okay.
something like the 16, 17, something like that. I don't quite remember the year. I remember the Twin Towers. I remember
Yeah.
seeing those. I didn't realize how much I should have really taken them in at the time, because I went and saw it and I was like, holy crap, those are huge. And, and we went inside and all this. But I mean, I really feel like now looking back on it, I should have explored it a bit more now that they're gone. But, that part was pretty interesting. But really, that kind of fueled my want to do traveling. But even before that, like me and Steve would take bike rides. And when we, and this was like when we were, I don't know, 14, stuff like that. We would take bike rides and go down into Pennsylvania, like past Warren and all this kind of stuff. And seeing that without my parents just felt like, oh, this is so cool. And, so that kind of started fueling the whole idea of wanting to travel New York
Just
trip.
seeing different things and being able to explore them
Yeah,
sort of
and
on your
realizing
own.
that it's, a lot of places weren't that far because, as much as everybody talks about traveling and how it should be like, oh, Italy or, I got to go see London or France, whatever. It's, there's a lot of pretty stuff that's right around you that you've
Yeah.
probably never seen. And, so like you can definitely go and see all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to see more stuff that was that close because I could afford it. We could go there. We had the means to travel there. Where
Hmm.
I think the hardest part about growing up in Jamestown with wanting to travel was every place felt really far away. So like Pittsburgh felt far.
Yeah.
Cleveland felt far, and New York felt especially far, and that's where the airports were. And then you would see the airline ticket costs, and I mean, when I was 16, I was getting paid $4.12 an hour part time. When
Hmm.
I got a $97 paycheck, I was like, I'm rich,
Yeah.
you know, and so you just didn't have the means to do it. So we were always trying to find certain places that we could go that we could actually go because I hate planning stuff and then just going cool and then you just kind of sit down and don't do it. I've always hated that. It's like I want to go do this. So we would always find stuff around where we were and travel there, even though most of the places I can barely remember because we would just find them along the way, you know.
Right.
So even when I do traveling out here, when me and the wife go up and travel, we we'll do a lot of like road trips or something, try to see as many beaches as possible or something like that. And in one place that we ran into, I don't even know the name of it. We got off of the freeway, off of the 5. We got off. No, we were doing beaches, so it'd have been closer to the 1. Sorry, the PCH. So we went over to the PCH and we were driving up it, and we got off at this one town to essentially get gas, and we decided to eat there, and it was all themed out in Western style. And I just thought that was neat. I mean, it took me by surprise. Like, and it was just funny. So we went in there and ate, and it was just a regular restaurant, but everything just kind of looked old and westerny, and there was barely anybody there,
That's really
And
cool. Let me go back real quick before we get into
Yeah.
like locations, like specific
Yeah, sure.
locations. Do you enjoy when work takes you places, or is it more like you're focused on the job and it is what it is?
I love it when the work takes me places. I think it's I think I like it the best only because, I get paid. And
Well, sure.
but also like when you're on a job, it's weird, but everything's kind of open to you, you know, because
Like
now
like in
because
the town and stuff, you mean?
like in the town, yeah, when they find out what you're there for, and like you have a lot more accessibility. And like when I was working in television, because I used to do all the motorcycle shows back in the day. Oh, that was a long time ago. I used to do the Miss America pageants when I first started, and I've done a lot of terrible shows like Showgirls Boot Camp. And when you're,
I
yeah,
didn't know that was a
Showgirls
thing.
Boot Camp. Yeah, nobody did. As it would turn out, no one watched it, and that it's fine. It had a budget. It paid me. It's totally fine. But it was crazy the access in which I was given, because it's like I was in, like, say, Vegas. Obviously, Showgirls. Uh, I was in Vegas, and it's like I'm a part of the show, so I'd get a little badge, and I mean I could go anywhere. So you just walked in, and it's like, here's the Bellagio, and it would say employees only, and you just go in. And
Wow.
stuff like that is really cool. And I love that kind of thing, where the other stuff you go to watch the show. And I would get to see the show. I just wouldn't have to pay for it. And if I didn't like it, I didn't necessarily have to stick around. I could kind of go off and focus on other parts of the work, you know. But yeah, so it was kind of neat having this full access sort of pass, you know.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love taking family trips and all the rest of this kind of stuff. But a lot of my travel when it comes to family trips has been back to Jamestown because my parents are still alive and my grandma was alive. And so, she just passed this year. So I would go back home because you never know when they're not going to be around.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And,
So,
that's where all my friends were and all this kind of stuff. So,
so let's move into the meat of the
yep.
show.
Ooh.
So, you start wherever you'd like to start, your favorite
All right.
place, whatever it is. Where have you been?
I've been to several places. A lot of them are in the United States. I've been to many different places: North Carolina, South Carolina, all. But I'm only mentioning places that I actually like stayed, and that was kind of the destination,
Sure.
for a little while, as opposed to places I've crossed through. Because obviously, North Carolina, I drove down there as a kid. I flew back there in television, so it's like North Carolina, South Carolina, Louisiana. I've done plenty of shows over there. A ton of stuff in Atlanta. I had to fly back and forth to New York City, like Manhattan. Over here, I've done a lot of Vegas, New Mexico, because and those are all shows, not really family trips. Although my first time going to Vegas was me and my now wife, who we've been married for 25 years. We went there on a date for fun. And then, there's like Northern California, which is an amazing place. I live in Los Angeles, and it's not an amazing place, but that could only be because I've been here for so long now that it's just like your regular neighborhood. But driving up north, I mean, it takes you into completely different worlds. So it's California, upstate California is amazing. So like the sequoia trees, stuff like that, really, really nice. Been to Hawaii, been down to Mexico, and or maybe near Mexico. Nuerta Vallarta is where it was, a place called Paradise Village. Australia, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver. So a lot of places in Canada. It's as many as I can think of right now.
And that's a pretty good list. So, of the places, let's just start with, I guess, with like the continental United States. Of the places that you've
Okay.
been, that you've spent a decent amount of time in, like, do you have a favorite, or do you have places that maybe even you've been to, spent a couple of days, but you kind of wish you had a chance to go back?
Oh yeah, Northern California for sure
Hmm.
is probably one of my favorite spots to be. And the funny part is, it was I've been out here 25 years. I've gone up there several times to like San Francisco. San Francisco is really pretty. When you see it from a cliffside, when you get into it, it's like, oh, and then you leave. But the Golden Gate Bridge, I mean, what a sight! I just like the sights more than like the nightlife. Like, let's go to this bar or shows and all that. I usually don't do that. Like, I wanted to see Alcatraz, but it turns out you have to book it a year in advance. I didn't know that.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, well, that's what the person, because I mean, we were trying to see it right then. Like, hey, isn't that ferry going there? Can we get on it? And they said no. So we still haven't gone and seen Alcatraz, but I mean, you can see it from a distance. But me and Steve, we actually found like a lookout spot that's right before you get onto the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's a hell of a view. It's an old abandoned military base that they used to have like 20 mil guns sitting on. So we went up there and checked it out, and we rode our motorcycles up there. So it was, and we took the PCH. So all of that. It's just it's an amazing place because it changes from down here in LA. It's like a desert, and then all of a sudden you're going through like the fields, kind of like a Nebraska style, or you can go travel on the PCH, and it's nothing but cliffside stuff that you would feel that you're only going to see in a foreign country like Italy or something. And then you end up over in San Francisco, and it's this neat little town, this bay town, really cool, little island sort of thing. And then you go inland, and it's the sequoia trees and crazy like jungle. I mean, they shot Star Wars: The Return of the Jedi there, and I love seeing the sequoia trees. I thought that was amazing. It was so pretty up there, and it blows your mind seeing trees that it's like you feel like you're in the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, because
Wow.
they're just, one of them is 36 feet if you dug a hole straight through it. A tree that's bigger than people's homes. It's just,
Wow.
like it's incredible. And then they
It's
got
tough to wrap
crazy
your head
height.
around.
It's when you see it, at first you're like, oh, those trees look pretty big, and then you get up close to it and you're like, holy jeez, like that's not pretty big, it's huge. And I mean, the bark is thicker than your leg. It's just like just one, how the ridges in bark, it's like as thick as a car door. It's crazy. And I don't know, stuff like that. I've always been a woods person, so this was like the woods on crack. And you can go up a little bit further north. I'd like to explore more north, but you got to be careful because of the elevation and all this kind of stuff. So when it starts to get cool outside, when you actually want to do traveling, it's really cold up there. So you get up there and you need to have a 4x4 with chains on the tires and all this kind of stuff. You're not allowed up there, and it can be really dangerous because of all the snow that they get.
Yeah, isn't it
And
crazy? Like again, thinking about like the difference in being from Western New York and having people just assume that you're near New York City. It's
yeah,
the same thing with California. If you say you're from California, I think beaches, palm trees,
yeah, no,
warm weather, movie stars. And then
yeah.
when you realize that if you just go north, there's incredible ski country and stuff up there.
Oh yeah. And funny part is, like, I find it funny when everybody talks about like, hey, California, and they send me like the palm tree emoji, and I'm like, those don't exist here.
Yeah,
They were brought here in the 50s when we wanted the Olympics to look tropical. And
that's incredible.
other than that, they don't grow here. They do now, now that
They're
they're
not
all over the
native.
place. Yeah, but they're not native. Just like the Canary pine and all that kind of stuff. I had two of them in my front lawn. Now I got a redwood in my front lawn. And it's the really thick bark. It's not as big as up north because it doesn't get the crazy rain. But it's it is kind of funny how people kind of think that, like, the desert, all this kind of stuff, and it's not. You go up north, and I mean, it is crazy jungle. They actually have a tree somewhere up north that's called the mother tree, and it's a tree so big other trees grow off of its branches.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, it's incredible. Like I said, you don't need to go far to see something epic. It's a lot of the times it's right in your own backyard. You just don't know it until you go out and find it.
Right.
There's a place that we travel to that's out here as well, Northern California, called Solvang, and it's all decked out to be a Dutch town, or a Danish town, or whatever it was, like the windmills and all this kind of stuff. But it's completely decked out to look like that. Me and my wife went up there and just kind of tooled around in it for a while, and it's huge. It's like a whole town that's all decked out to look just like that. And everything is made kind of custom, like the wood shops and all this kind of stuff. And it was really cool. I didn't even know it existed.
And it's a fully operational town. There's
Yeah,
restaurants and stores and
restaurants, hotels, everything that you want. It's called
wow.
Solvang. Beautiful little place in the middle of nothing. Wine country, and a Dutch village. And you're like,
Nice.
okay, and but those kind of things exist, and they're right around, and I love that about this state, because it's so long, so you can, there's no town is the same. It's really interesting. And then if you don't like that, you can go to like Big Bear, and you're in a log cabin retreat up in the mountains where you're skiing. I can travel 3 hours from where I am right now at 70 degrees and go skiing.
It's crazy.
So
you love California, you just don't love necessarily the part you live in, but you're there for necessity.
I am not here for anything but the work.
Yeah,
Other than that, no,
exactly.
I wouldn't live here. 'Cause, it's like I got a love-hate relationship with this place. I absolutely hate the fires. I hate the Santa Ana winds that actually fueled our last fire and burnt half of LA down. And then
And this at least this time it didn't affect you, correct?
it did not, but it did at first, because we did prepare to evacuate, because I could see the fire on the mountain behind my house. And the wind was blowing just slightly a different direction, southeast, and I was slightly southwest of it. So if I would have been 3 miles down the road, I might not have a house. So
Yeah.
it's like where my son went to high school is gone. It's not like
So
burnt; it's gone. So
yeah,
there is no more high school there.
I went out to visit you some years ago, and that was not long after the last round of big fires.
Yeah,
And I know
that
that you
burnt
were
down four of my
gone.
neighbors.
I know you were gone during part of that, as I
Yeah,
recall, you saying you came back and somehow it just kind of it's almost like it leapt over your house
yeah,
that you were in at the time.
yeah. It was. I lost four neighbors moved away after that, because they lost their homes. And they were
Incredible.
my direct neighbors, the guys right across the street from me. It was 1, 2, 3, 4 lined up, and they all burnt down.
And you
And
had singe holes in your umbrella.
yeah, and all of our outdoor patio furniture was all charred, and had little ember holes in it. And all the bushes that surrounded the backyard were all. A lot of them had charred. One side of it was charred. But luckily, the fire department parked in my driveway, and that's where they were shooting the water from. So I got kind of lucky.
It's just crazy.
Right? And so those things I don't like. And everybody's surprised, like, oh my gosh, the fires this year. And it's like, the fires were only talked about because they burnt down a lot of homes. But LA burns every year.
Right.
It's just about every single year. This place the mountains will burn, and and they light up and they go, and then the Santa Ana winds carries it, and some towns have gotten hit so hard that everybody was killed, because it just went right through it like a flamethrower. And luckily with this one we had a warning, so the people got out before it did that. But and also earthquakes, not a fan, never been a fan. It's weird. The whole house moves. There's absolutely nothing you can do. So, that kind of stuff is, uh, it's scary because you never know when it's going to happen. And as much as they have warning system, it will go off while it's happening, which
Right.
is really funny because it just scares you more.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden the Amber Alert goes off and it's like earthquake while everything's shaking. It's like, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
And the housing cost, that's one thing I hate about California in general is the housing cost. It's an incredibly greedy state. That part I hate about it. I'd say it's definitely a state you want to visit and see the sights, but don't live here. It's, rent can be, right now, one of my neighbor's houses is they put it up for rent. It's just a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, $5,500 a month.
Oh my
And,
gosh.
and that's competitive. That's pretty good, which is crazy because
Wow.
a lot, when I got out here, well, let's go back a little bit. When I was in Jamestown, Frank had an apartment, a buddy of ours, and he got an apartment. I think it was $280 a month. And he was complaining about how expensive that was. Now, granted, this was in the 90s. And when I moved out thinking that I could find a place for roughly $300, $350, something like that. And
It's
so I moved all the way out
closet,
here.
maybe.
Oh, I don't even think and today you wouldn't even be able to get a closet for that amount. Hell, the storage units cost more than that now a month. But I came out here and I found a place, and I lived in my car for like 2 nights before finally I was able to get a hold of people. I was the person I was meeting out here. At that time it was a friend of my mom's. Now she was my mother-in-law. She got me a place to stay, and that was $650 a month, and that was a shock. And the best part is she was trying to get me a good deal.
Oh, I believe it.
And and it was just a 1-bedroom apartment, and
That
$650
probably was a
a
good deal.
month. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a good deal. She was trying to save me money,
Mm-hmm.
and and I moved out here with close to 10 grand, but that was it. And I was trying to find work, and it was really hard to find work. And the work, when I finally got a job in construction, by the way, doing water pipeline stuff, I got paid $7.15 an hour.
Oh my
And
gosh.
$650 a month. Well, my whole paycheck was just for rent. And it's the same as today. Like if you have a job that pays you $80,000 a year, your entire paycheck will go into rent. There's
Mm-hmm.
no money at all after that. So you have to be a 2-person income, or you're just not going to make it. Or you have to make because of course the more money you make, you're probably going to end up doing something like renting a house, or say you decide that you're crazy enough to buy a house. It's going to be, roughly anywhere between $8,000 and $12,000 a month in mortgage. So $120,000 job doesn't even pay your mortgage because there's taxes, and California
Sure.
taxes the heck out of you. And so it's not a great place to live, but it is a wonderful place to visit. Only because it's just because of those things.
Well, I won't be living there anytime soon.
As you
I know for
shouldn't.
myself.
I'm only here because I like the work, and I left all of my friends and family to do this. So by God, I'm gonna tough it out.
Right.
So I keep doing
So,
it every year.
so it sounds like you're big into, I guess, sights, maybe.
I
Definitely
like sites.
nature.
Yeah.
I get that.
Oh yeah,
So,
huge. Yeah.
of maybe of the other places, especially something like Big Fork, Minnesota. That's a place that I don't hear people
Yeah.
talk about often.
Come on, Big
Um,
Fork. Everybody knows Big Fork. It's
I
right
mean,
near Duluth.
I've heard of Big Fork, but I don't know what's there. So,
What about Duluth? You know Duluth?
well, I know that's a clothing company, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's made right there. Come on. Go over there. See the underwear. Ah.
So what brought you to Big Fork?
I was shooting independent film, and we went out there to shoot it at my buddy's property. He owns his dad owned 26 acres. His dad was going to be a part of the movie. He ended up passing, so I never actually got to meet him, which really sucked. So we went over there to shoot this film. I actually thought it was pretty neat, but it is a small town. It actually makes Jamestown, New York, look like just a bustling city. It's really in the middle of nowhere. Like we went to the grocery store, and it was like a 8-mile drive to get there. And when you got there, it was just like 2 employees and meat. And that was, it was really, really bizarre. And, but I mean, super small, cute little town. But I liked walking, like me and my son would go for walks every morning through the woods. And I really enjoy doing that because, as you know, in Jamestown, I own that property in Clymer, and that is all woods as well. So, it reminded me of home, and that part was pretty nice. But as far as like really cool sights to see, if you ever do decide to go anywhere around there, it is the state of 10,000 lakes. So there's like everywhere you go, you'll run into a lake, and they're all very pretty. Some of them so still that it looks like, God, I feel like I'm quoting Forrest Gump, like like it was like a mere reflection of the sky. It was, because there's obviously no waves, and the lake you could essentially walk across. It's not very big, but it was quite fascinating. Then if you get close to, say, I think it has one of the Great Lakes, Lake Superior. Lake Superior's right there, and it's got massive cliff sides, like a drop it's hundreds of feet. It's just straight down. And, stuff like that is really neat, very interesting to see. So even though it's just Minnesota, the sights that you can see out there nature-wise is very cool.
Is there anywhere else that you've been in the U.S. that just really stood out to you as far as nature and just really seeing some really cool sights that you just can't see everywhere?
I think every place that I go to has sights that you just can't see anywhere. Again, Michigan was the same thing up in the UP. Went up there. A lot of cliffside stuff. I went and saw Granite Loma. Granite Loma is a mansion that exists out there, and it's $10 million, which is crazy for, the Upper Peninsula. But it was gorgeous getting to see that place. And again, the cliff sides, because again, it lines Lake Superior. When I went out to Manhattan, I mean, there's nothing like Manhattan. It's just a crazy city. And I've walked all of it. I try as best I can to walk the grid. And I did that from I started at Central Park, and I've been there for several shows. But every time I get a moment, I try to walk Central Park, and then I walk it all the way down to the ferry that takes you out to the Statue of Liberty.
To Ellis Island.
Yeah, out to Ellis Island. When I brought my family there, we went to Ellis Island and saw that, and that was amazing. We couldn't get into the Statue of Liberty, oddly enough. They weren't allowing people to at the time. I really wanted to go inside, but we couldn't. So we took the ferry out there. And I mean, it's like when you see it, it's something that you just don't forget. And just to think that so many immigrants from way back, that was the first thing that they saw coming from their country and stuff like that. I don't know. It was overwhelming. It was very cool. And going to see Wall Street was really cool, and we rode the subway. Since I normally walk it all over the place, when my family was there, we decided to try the subways and take the subways all over. And it was incredible. It was a lot of fun. Like Grand Central Station. It's neat. It's fun.
Yeah. Grand Central Station's another one that when you're inside of it, when the Grand really stands out. I mean,
yeah, it really does. It's amazing. And it's huge, and it's all made of brick. It's just, I don't know, something about it is amazing. And if you go into it like that, I think that you'll be quite surprised at what you would find just around where you are. And any place in the United States there's many beautiful places, maybe not as enriched with history as, say, something like Rome, but there's definitely a lot of history here and a lot of things to go see. And
Sure.
so, like when I was a kid, I used to go to Nags Head, North Carolina all the time for family vacations, and a lot of cool stuff to see there. And it was really nice renting a cabin that was not a cabin. I don't know what you'd call it, a house that's right on the shore. So when you walk down the steps, your feet were in sand that led right to the ocean. And like that was really neat. But that was the only traveling I ever did as a kid, was down there. So I really only thought that North Carolina was the only place to go. And
Yeah.
then that we could get to, because that's where my parents went. And if it wasn't that, some reason I remember traveling through like West Virginia. There's another place that not a lot of people think about, but West Virginia it's gorgeous land. A lot of cool bridges, like the steel works and stuff like that. A lot of interesting places, a lot of abandoned places, which are always fun to check out. So did a lot of that when I was younger.
What, anything from abandoned places that stand out to you? I've never done that.
To abandoned places?
Yeah.
Yeah. You never went to the abandoned train station that we had in Jamestown?
I never actually went into it. No. I've been
Oh,
there now that it's a thing.
yeah. Now
And
that it's a comedy
yeah,
club,
an event hall. Yeah, but
it's
I was
beautiful.
never there.
It's beautiful outside, but I remember when it was completely abandoned, I went inside many times and went upstairs before they started doing any of the construction. They had a big clock that was up there. That was neat. I wish I could remember the time it was stopped at. It was like 11:10 or something like that. And we would run around inside of this thing. It was just a maze of hallways and rooms. And one room we found an enormous stack, like 8 foot tall stack of blueprints.
Mm.
Just blueprints, ginormous blueprints. You'd open it up, and and it was just of different railway stations. Really bizarre.
For, for those that
And
don't know, Jamestown, New York, where we're from, small town south of Buffalo, just across the border from Erie, PA. Claim to fame is Lucille Ball. 10,000 Maniacs are from there, if anyone is our age and remembers that music. Actually, the commissioner of the NFL, Roger Goodell, is from there, born there at least, and Nick Sirianni, the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, is from Jamestown. That's what we got. But back 100 years ago, Jamestown was a huge, maybe the largest hub for furniture manufacture in the
yeah,
country.
yeah,
It was massive, and then just like a lot of other places, took a major dive somewhere along the line, and just like the steel industry here in Pittsburgh, things go
yep,
away, and then people start closing their doors, people lose their jobs, people leave, and that, like, the need for the train station in Jamestown was no longer, because not only all of that happened, but obviously the progression of different forms of transportation. But
yeah.
um, yeah, it was. I
Well,
remember it being kind of a sad thing to have it there and have it just be in disrepair, but I never went inside of it. So
yeah, I tried to break into as many places as I could when it was abandoned.
that's
Abandoned. And I'd like trying to get in. It wasn't hard. I mean, all the doors were busted in because someone else broke in, so we just
right.
kind of walked in. And I used to walk the tracks too, because I mean there was
They
no
weren't using
trains on
them.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
weren't
weren't
using them.
using
They
them,
do
so I used
now.
to walk the tracks. Oh,
Yeah,
really?
they're
I didn't know that.
yeah. I believe they're in use again now. But
Another fun fact about Jamestown, a claim to fame that we have, is crescent wrench was made there.
oh yeah,
That's where it started. And also, a lot of people buy Bush furniture, and Bush, it's still in their manual that it's One Mason Drive in Jamestown, New York.
that's funny.
So anytime that you're at a Staples and see a desk and it's made by Bush, it originated in Jamestown. So,
And now, as we talk travel, just because
yep,
this is something that could be a destination for anyone who's listening, the National Comedy Center is there because of Lucille Ball, but we get major, huge, any big name comic you could think of
Yeah, huge.
will come to Jamestown once a year. There's a huge festival, and the National Comedy Center. If you haven't been there, it's awesome. It's really cool. I mean, not only just seeing like the artifacts and the different information about the different comics that have shaped comedy over the years. There's actually a hologram show where you can watch comics who have died on stage as if they're there performing in front of you. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, the outside of it, you still I don't know if it's the front door or the back door, but one of the doors you actually have to cross over the railroad tracks that say, well, welcome to Jamestown or whatever, or it says the city of Jamestown is right there. But by the river, there's like a
Yeah,
small
yeah,
river, and I took that way to go over to that building, and I mean it looks great.
yeah. It's
They
really
really
cool.
did a really nice job. It's all cleaned up because that was like, I mean,
Hmm.
that area right where that door is, that's where I used to get into the place, and it was just brush and broken glass everywhere. It was just nasty, and that's where we would go inside.
Yeah, I
But yeah,
want to
there
say
was a
Condé Nast voted it as one of the best museums in the country.
yeah, no, it's really well done. It is actually a really cool spot. But see, that's what I'm talking about, though. It's right in your backyard too. It's right there.
Yep.
I mean, it's, every time I go home, it's right there, and you just wouldn't think that it's there. Like down in West Virginia, there was several spots. Like we would stop off at some of these, steel like bridges, and you can just walk down. Just pull your car over, put the hazards on, because apparently when you have your hazards on, you can do whatever you want. At least that's what I'm learning out here in California. And you can go down the embankment and I mean, the bridges out there are incredible that go across, and they're all made of steel, like the big I beams, the big archway. It's
And
really
they're from
cool
Pittsburgh,
stuff to see.
probably from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, probably. And
Matter of fact, if my facts are straight, I live in a small town called Ambridge, which is north of Pittsburgh. I'm pretty sure the steel that was made here by the American Bridge Company, who founded our city, went to the Golden Gate Bridge.
I wouldn't doubt it. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
I'm
doubt
pretty
it.
sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry.
And
Continue with your
no,
West
that's
Virginia.
that. Oh, I'm just saying, like West Virginia. It's some of the places that get kind of overlooked. There's a lot of neat stuff. Like I like going out, and I used to do a lot more photography when I first moved out here, and so we would, when I was back in Jamestown doing the traveling, I took a little camera with me, and I'd like taking pictures of abandoned places. I liked the history of it. Now it's just this rundown building, but at one point it was this hustling, bustling work environment, like a steel mill or something like that, that was producing these great things that are all across our nation. And now here it is in just this disarray. But it's, I just find that kind of stuff fascinating.
So when you go somewhere and you see something like that, or even if it's something that is well known and and everyone knows of this place that you're at or whatever, do you still make it a point if you see something that you think is really cool to then go back and do the research afterward?
I try. Yeah. I try if I know where I am, because a lot of the times we just kind of like, what's that? I don't know. Let's go, and then you're there, and it's like I don't know what it was, and so I try to find out what it was, because now it's so easy. When I was a kid, it was much harder trying to find out information, but now it's so easy to kind of look up stuff. Like I do that a lot out here in California, because you can drive out. Me and Steve, again, my buddy Steve, drive. We would go four-wheeling all the time, and this is early time after I moved out here, and then he moved out here 4 years later. We would take all kinds of four-wheel trips out in the desert and just kind of roam, and you would come across entire neighborhoods that were built kind of, it seemed a little bit like money laundering, but because they were all built, but none of them sold. And so they just like, and they stopped. And so you're just driving on paved roads, street names, the whole thing. And there's like shells of houses everywhere, but no one's there. And it's way out in the middle of the desert. And it was really cool.
Wow.
I really like that. And there was one that was, we were taking dirt bikes and we were riding, and we ran into a whole area that has now been built because the 2008 crash happened. but now it's, it was years later, but this was right when that happened. There was a bunch of communities that started to be built, but then of course the crash happened, so they stopped.
And
And
wait, so are you saying you literally were just riding through like a desert area and
yeah,
happened upon these? You weren't on the
yeah,
roads that led
no,
to it.
no. I was not on the roads. We were on dirt bikes riding around the desert, and we came across a neighborhood it connected eventually to another street. It's not landlocked.
Okay,
It's connected, but we came at it at a different angle, I guess.
I gotcha.
And so we're riding through the desert, and all of a sudden there's a curb. That's weird. We're in the middle of nowhere, and then it's just a paved road. So we got on this, and it was a brand new paved road. It had to cost a fortune because California roads much wider. So we're riding through. Now we're going as fast as we can because there's no traffic. Obviously, there's no one there, but a bunch of plots where houses are going to be developed. They're just not developed yet. And as we were riding through it, we're also doing this at night with flashlights taped to our hats.
Oh my God.
Our dirt bikes didn't have headlights. And so we're riding through the desert at night, being guided by moonlight and literal flashlights taped with duct tape to our hats, riding around through, which was a lot of fun. If anybody's out there that's going to do that, I recommend it. Don't be surprised if you get hurt, but I still recommend doing it. You can't beat it. And then we're riding along, and all of a sudden there's paved roads. So now it's like, oh my God, paved roads. So we just open it up, and we're just hauling patootie down the street. And all of a sudden we come across, this is going to sound really strange, but a bunch of bulls that have gotten out of their flock, or whatever you call a round of bulls and cows, and they were grazing at this property. And so we're right, and I'm like going around these magnificent, ginormous animals, and with a flashlight taped to my head, and they were black, like Black Angus bulls, just a couple of them, but it was crazy. But those are the things that I remember the most, more than like, oh, what destination? It's that was incredible. Like I'll never forget that. There they were, just bulls. And
Wow.
and that part was really cool. And every time I hang out with Steve, which is a lot, we always end up bringing that up because it was not anything that I was ever expecting. And the worst part about the whole trip was after we saw all that dangerous stuff. I mean, these are bulls. They had horns. We get back in the desert, but now we're going like we're still on pavement, and that's when I crashed.
Oh, jeez.
And all of a sudden it started doing that wobble that you can't stop when you're on a motorcycle or a dirt bike.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it started wobbling like crazy, and I'm trying to slow down, and the wobble just threw me right off. And then the back tire, I landed on the back tire because it flipped. And the back tire went up underneath my shirt and tore off a bunch of skin on my chest.
Oh, great.
And that was, it wasn't terrible. It really wasn't. It wasn't bad. But, did that burn. And but it's so funny that we run into bulls. We're out in the middle of the desert with flashlights taped to our heads, all this kind of stuff. And it wasn't until the sun started, because we did it all night. It wasn't until the sun started coming up that I ended up crashing, and I could see visibly fine. And then all of a sudden, that's when I crashed. No danger of anything around. We're on a perfectly dirt road. And that was the only thing connecting this paved community, was a dirt road.
That's brilliant.
And and that road is what I end up crashing on. But, and you mentioned some of the most beautiful places. I went to Hawaii. That was a gorgeous place. That was for work. I did Miss America there. And I can't recommend Hawaii enough. But again, what made it really special was the fact that I was doing the Miss America show. So I had full access to everything. And then we even took, for the show, we got into one of those one propeller planes and we flew around each of the islands filming them and landed at most of them. And that's something that you're not going to do just going there.
Sure.
Typically, some people obviously can. Obviously, I'm not the first person to ever do it, but other people definitely have the access to that. But for the general public, that's just not, you go, like we stayed at the Hilton Hawaiian Village in the Rainbow Tower, I think they called it, because it has a giant rainbow painted on it. And it was really nice. That part was really nice. But once we got on that plane and I went to the Big Island, and we were flying around it, and then we landed, and again, because I'm part of a show, I don't pay for any of this stuff. And so I'm getting paid to be there. And I got onto a bus, and it was a bus just exclusive for crew. And we were driving through the place, and we got to see all the interesting sites that were there. And so that way we could film it. And so we got to walk right up to a lava tube that was so big you could drive the bus into it. And
what's a lava tube?
It's where
Something
the
to do with
lava
a volcano, but
yeah, the volcano, basically the volcano erupts at the top, right? Like we all seen the peak of them explode. But then there's some parts where the lava will rush out through the side of the mountain, and it creates a tube of just molten rock, essentially, that shoots out of the side. And but of course, Hawaii's not, it's always active in that one spot, but not everywhere. And so you could go up to this, and it's an inactive tube, and it's just a giant hole in the side of like a mountain that you could drive this bus down that used to have lava flowing out of it.
That's awesome.
And so it was, I mean, you know the town that we grew up in, and it's like, this was like 2002. I left Jamestown in 1999. And so 3 years into it, I'm staring at a lava tube after taking a one propeller plane over and seeing this thing, and I'm not on vacation. It was, for me, it was just mind blowing.
Yeah,
because
I'm sure.
You just never know what you're going to get yourself into, and it was stunning. I really enjoyed the Big Island. I thought it was really cool.
So this is the second episode of the podcast. This is the second episode where someone just loves Hawaii and recommends it highly. And so
yeah.
I guess you not have to go.
Yeah. How can you not enjoy Hawaii? It's so much fun. The food is great. Inner cities, not that great. Very much like LA. Very unfortunate. But if you get to go to one of the villages, unbelievable. It's such a beautiful place. But, Hawaii was definitely one of those spots.
Awesome. But I want to make sure we get to some of the places you've been outside the country. A couple of places you've been to, a few places in Canada. Let's start there. Anything that stood out to you in any of those cities? And then we can move on to Australia, because I'm very, very interested to hear anything that went on there. Obviously, I know of the movie that you were filming there, but because Canada's, for those that are listening from the U.S., obviously Canada is much more accessible. So, anything from Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal that stands out to you?
Well, it's really what I was doing there. I mean, not the show. I mean, the show or whatever, but like in Vancouver, we did The Man in the High Castle. But once it was done filming, I asked if they could set up my flight for later, the next day. And they said, sure. And so I got to leave, 12 hours after the rest of the crew did. And I decided I was going to walk from my hotel to the airport. And I just wanted to serpentine as much of Vancouver as I possibly could. And it was great. There's some rivers there, and you can take trolleys across them. Beautiful rock formation areas with a lot of trees. The city was really nice. I really enjoyed the city. The restaurants were good. Vancouver, I thought, was a wonderful little little trip. But I wanted to walk most of it. I didn't want it just to be about the hotel and then the airport and then go home. I'm trying
How
to think.
was that actually walking? And you walked all the way to the airport?
I got all the way to the bridge because the airport turns out is an island, and and so I got to the bridge, and I didn't really want to walk across the bridge. There was a lot of traffic, and and I was kind of like, eh. So I got an Uber right at the start of the bridge and I mean, it was a 12-hour walk just to
Wow.
try to get there. Yeah, it was long, and I was going all over the place. I just wanted to see different neighborhoods, and really, it's just a really nice America. The people are very nice. There was a bit of a homeless problem in downtown, but that's to be expected
Yeah.
almost anywhere you go. But it's a really nice area, and I didn't fear for anything walking around like I did when I first went to Manhattan. In the '90s, that was much scarier. But yeah, it was a beautiful walk. I loved it, and I made it all the way to the bridge that leads you to the airport, and then I just got an Uber because it didn't even look like there was that much space to walk, so I didn't want to risk anything, and I was
Wow.
I was dragging my luggage too, so
Oh, jeez.
yeah, but you do what you got to do, but
So,
it's like I just wanted to see everything.
so Vancouver's worth a trip.
Vancouver is definitely worth the trip. Yeah, it's very beautiful. It's a very nice little town.
Now, Montreal, I've actually been to once.
I love
Toronto, I've been
Montreal.
to once. But,
Yep.
tell me your experiences.
Well, Toronto, I went there. I've never been there for a show. I went there because my buddy Steve, again, uh, was taking an art school up there. So so of course, when he asked if I could come up there, I said yeah, and I went up there. And this was at a time I didn't even have a passport. I could use my driver's license. You remember that, going to Niagara Falls, because I've been to Niagara Falls, but up to Toronto.
You don't have
I
to
went,
date us like that, but yes.
yeah, before 9/11. Yeah, pre 9/11, you really could just take a driver's license and go up there. And so, but we went up there, or I went up there to go meet him, and it was a long drive. I didn't really know the way, and it was all paper maps. I don't mean to date us, but yeah, it was paper maps. And trying to read that and navigate while you're alone in a car was something. So, but I actually really enjoyed Toronto, and it's a subterranean city. So there's a city above, and then there's a city below, which is really kind of cool. Like me and Steve again would just walk around, and we walked around, and we would find different parks, and it's such an epic little city. It's cold as heck, but it's beautiful. And if you go around Halloween, there's all kinds of art schools, and they do it up. It's really nice to see in Halloween. Like they get in full on xenomorph costumes. It's crazy. So it was really nice seeing that. But we were walking around the town, and there's this one park with swings, all this kind of stuff. And there was this protruding object out of the center of it made of glass. And we went over and looked at it, and it was a mall underneath us. And I thought that was really cool.
That's actually it's cool that you're talking about this because the first time I ever experienced this, and I'm sure that there's cities all over the place that have stuff like this,
Oh,
but
yeah.
when I was in San Antonio, they have this river walk in Texas, and when you're on street level, you don't realize that the river is so far down, and there are shops and businesses and restaurants and whatever
Yeah.
at that level. And unless you realize that it's like if you're just driving through, you probably don't even think about it. If you're from there, obviously or if you're visiting there for like a vacation, you're going to realize that. But I didn't know that until we got there, and so that was one of the coolest things for me. I agree, was just walking around at surface level and then going down the stairs, and all of a sudden you're in a different not a different place, but yeah, it's a totally different vibe, a totally different feel, and different world in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it really is. And then one of the things is we found this one building has like a 45-degree angle cement wall. Kind of almost looks like supports for the building. I don't think it was. I think it was a design choice, but it still had this 45-degree angle, and it came right down to the ground. So me and Steve decided, why not try to climb it? And so we started climbing up this angle, and it was just a cement wall, like, maybe a foot or two wide. And it went right up, and it went up there like 10 stories. And we went all the way up to where the building started, where the actual windows and stuff were. And there was police and all this kind of stuff down below us. And, so we were like, oh no, go back. And we started sliding back down this angle of just cement that went up into the air. And it was, it's stuff like that I remember more than anything else. Like the little things that you go and do. Oh, it's so much fun though. And, it's also just like, we didn't plan on doing that. It was just there. And I mean, it's at a slope that you can walk up. So walk up it, see what it's like up there. And turns out very scary because it's a long drop, but it was exciting, and we were young. I don't know how much I'd do that today. Well, I'd probably still do it, but I figure now if I fell, I'd really get hurt.
Probably. And that was Toronto, you said, right?
That was Toronto. Yeah, this is all Toronto. I really enjoyed Toronto because it's quite a city, and if you're into the whole city thing, it's quite an amazing city to visit. It's very interesting city, and everybody's really nice. And just beautiful little parks all over the place, and cool shopping centers. It's really nice. It's just a really nice place.
Did you have poutine?
No, of course not.
Why not?
I didn't know it was a thing.
How do you not know it's a thing?
How would I know it's a thing? I'm not from there.
No, but they have to sell it everywhere. You know what it is. You know what it is.
No, I don't.
Oh, it's French fries with cheese curds and gravy, and it's awesome.
It's perfect for a lactose intolerant person.
I don't care about that.
You don't care? It just ruins your whole trip.
I mean, it's worth it. You got to try it once.
I've seen them now that you describe it like that. I've seen them sell it, but nobody told me at the time what it was. It was just me and Steve walking around the city. I didn't ask like, "Hey, those cheese covered fries, what are those?"
All right, fine.
And but
anything else on Toronto, or I really want to hear your thoughts on Montreal because
I loved Montreal. You didn't like it?
I loved it as well.
I loved. And did you go to Old Montreal?
No.
You went to Montreal. You didn't go to Old Montreal. You know which place I'm talking about, right? The cobblestone roads.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's Old Montreal. Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. How can you not like it there? It's like you live amongst, I don't know, like the French hobbits. It's weird.
So,
it's crazy
honestly,
beautiful.
The things that remind me of that is going back to Europe. Like, honestly, it's just a very, honestly, I mean, it makes sense, but it's a very European feel. But I didn't know that at the time. When I went there, I was 16, 17 years old.
Oh, okay. I went there in 2019.
Yeah, that was when I went there in high school, but
yeah, we did 2 movies out there, Midway, and then something about the moon getting close to Earth. I don't know, it was moon something. But there. Again, I just made it a point to always go for walks. And I didn't care if it was snowing. I brought winter clothes, and I would just walk everywhere. And one place that I really enjoyed is, do you know how there's that park on top of the mountain in Montreal? There's like a big hill. I don't know if you saw it when you were 16 or 17, but there's a big mountain in the middle. I'm forgetting what the park is called, but at the top, there's a big walking, hiking park. And so I walked that whole thing. But what I didn't realize is right next to it, which I ended up discovering about 2 days later, is a massive cemetery. And I love cemeteries because I grew up near, Jamestown, New York has Lakeview Cemetery, and it has all the big headstones, and it's really pretty. And so I went into the cemetery, and you could hike for miles on nice paved roads around nothing but the dead. And it was unbelievable and so pretty because of big trees and all the leaves are on the ground. It was fall. It was gorgeous. And, so Montreal is definitely worth the trip because it does feel so foreign. I mean, it is foreign, but it feels like you're over in Europe, especially in old Montreal. It's amazing. That part it was really cool. It's really hard to explain because there's so much that you just need to be there, to and see it for yourself. Like cobblestone roads don't sound like much, but when you go and see them just trailing off in all directions, it's fascinating, and it's so pretty.
Yeah, I realized that from I've been in Prague in the Czech Republic a couple of times, and most of the sidewalks in like the old town are made up of these little tiny little square, maybe 1 inch by 1 inch.
Yeah.
I want to say it looks mosaic. The
Yeah.
amount of time and effort and work that went into putting these things down, because I'm talking miles of these sidewalks, and it's just it. But that's the way it was. So to see things like the cobblestone streets, to see things like that, and to appreciate it's
Yeah.
amazing to think.
It's so it's wild over there.
Yeah,
I really really enjoyed Munch, and we walked so far into it that there was times that all of a sudden it's like we were right out of that kind of area, and then you're just in the suburbs. And you're
yeah,
like, oh, nah,
and it's
nah.
like being in the suburbs anywhere else.
Yeah, anywhere. It's all the same. Like, new houses. Let's go back.
Right.
So you'd end up going back. And I spent a lot of time going up to that. Again, it was this huge mountain, and on the top of it is a park and a cemetery. And I spent more time in the cemetery than anywhere else because it was in walking distance of my apartment that they put, because I was there for 3 months. And so I just, it was right there. So I'd just walk up to there, or I'd walk into downtown Montreal, which was, oh man, it was beautiful. It is really hard to put. You almost got to see it just in like photographs. If you've never been there, you should really really go. It's unbelievable. It's really pretty.
Awesome. So part 1 of episode 2 is in the books. If you've enjoyed what you've heard so far, just know that next week gets even crazier. Some of the stories that Derek has to tell are just incredible. Made me laugh out loud multiple times. So come on back for part 2 of episode 2, which I guess could also be called episode 3, with Derek Cole. And I just thank you so much for listening to the Where Have You Been podcast. Tell your friends if you're enjoying what you're hearing, and like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. Join us again next week. Thank you so much. Have a great day.